So, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Today we'll discuss two topics, and I'll just flip through those topics with the help of PPTs, which I have already uploaded on your Google Classroom. So, you after the class, you can read those PPTs on the topics that we will discuss today. Second point is, please start reading the CRPC ka table of contents, so that maybe day after tomorrow or tomorrow only, I will be discussing or giving a lecture on scheme of CRPC. It's a very comprehensive legislation. If you do not read the table of contents in advance, then you may have some difficulty in following that particular lecture. Moreover, it's going to give you a hard time. The entire code is going to give you a hard time when it comes to recalling or remembering different provisions of the code which are there under different chapters, because there are around 484 sections divided into 37-38 chapters that we will try to make a sense of the entire code, so that we could know that there are some chapters which we can forget for a while, do not recall them, but there are some chapters which contain certain provisions of CRPC which are very important in order to complete this course, and later on in order to practice law under CRPC. The same is the problem with CPC, that when you start studying CPC, you do not pick up the bare act, look at its table of contents, do not see how the code has been designed. So it is very important to understand how the code has been drafted by the draftsman, so that you can pick up the essence of the code. If you do not know that fact, it will become a very rather, I would say, it will become a vicious circle. You will not have any idea from where to start and where to end and how to proceed studying criminal procedure. So with folded hand, I request all of you to start looking at the contents of CRPC. Okay? So somebody was asking something about Dukhi in the last class. Forget Dukhi for a while, by you pick up that code and start looking at the table of content of CRPC, so that when we will have that lecture tomorrow, we can make some sense out of the scheme, or I could possibly tell you that this is how the code has been drafted, and then we can start our discussion on the provisions of CRPC. So this is one very important thing which I wanted to discuss with you. Please buy the code, start reading it, start reading the table of contents, right? Not the provisions for a while, because that you can discuss when we will start our discussion on the provisions of CRPC. But please start reading the table of contents. Make yourself acquainted with how many chapters are there in CRPC, how many provisions are there in CRPC, how many schedules are there in CRPC, what does those schedule contain. So try to make yourself familiar with these parts of CRPC, and this is an exercise which you should undertake throughout the semester, because we won't be discussing all the chapters and all the provisions of CRPC, but that does not mean that chapters and provisions which we won't be discussing are not relevant. They are there in the CRPC because of some reason. They will be used at one point or the other point. We will be discussing only the main components, main pillars of CRPC, and maybe leaving many provisions. So this exercise you have to undertake continuously. That keep reading that particular code or different chapters of that particular code, so that you have an idea that how this code has been drafted. Another important point is, when I was studying CRPC during my college, I used to pick up a book and then read the book and then make my own notes, but never got a fair idea that what does this code is trying to convey to me. So do not fall into that trap, that even after studying a particular code, you do not have any idea that what does this code is actually trying to convey to you. Now coming to today's topic. Now, if you pick up any book on CRPC, rarely you would see a discussion on constitutional foundation of CRPC. Similar is the situation with, or rather say problem with, the books on IPC. In IPC also, you would rarely get to see a separate chapter or a discussion, detailed discussion on what are the constitutional foundation of Indian Penal Code, or for that matter, any substantive criminal law or procedural criminal law. So, for example, if you have read or skimmed through a book on IPC, have you have you read something wherein constitutional issues are discussed under IPC? Anyone? In the broader scheme of that book. Similar would be the situation in CRPC. I do not know which book you have read under IPC, but if you pick up any book on IPC, it's a commentary on IPC. It has nothing to do with the constitutional law. Similar is the situation in CRPC. When you pick up any book on CRPC, then you won't find any discussion on the relationship or connection of CRPC with the constitutional law. But the philosophical foundation of be it substantive criminal law or substantive procedural law like IPC, they are deeply rooted in certain constitutional rights. So we will try to make sense of how different constitutional provisions of Constitution of India, they in a way are reflected in the provisions of CRPC or in CRPC as a code. So suppose if I ask you this question that is IPC somewhere related to constitutional law, or if it is related, how is it related? Do you have any idea that if I say that look, each and every provision of IPC is deeply interlinked to our constitutional philosophy or constitutional law? If I say this, how would you respond to this question? आप ये कहोगे कि अरे क्या बात कर रहे हो यार, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लॉ है, आईपीसी है, इसमें उसका क्या वास्ता है? It is defining crimes and providing for punishment. दो काम करता है आईपीसी. Also, it lays down general defenses and some certain general principles of joint criminal liability. For example, 34, 49, and also lays down some provisions for punishing inchoate crimes like attempt, abatement, all those things. So how would you answer this question, or would you just pass this question? अपने को क्या मतलब है, लिखा होगा कुछ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लॉ में आईपीसी के बारे में, या फिर रिलेटेड होंगे, how I am concerned with it. So do they have any connection, IPC and constitutional law? Anyone?
Yes, sir. I think there is a connection.
What is that connection between IPC and constitutional law?
Sir, in my understanding, I think in constitutional law also, Constitution of India provides for our rights and liberties.
ठीक है.
IPC safeguards that right and provides us with the right to life.
Or you can say it otherwise, IPC also provides a procedure through which your life and liberty can be taken away.
Yes, sir. By law.
ठीक है. So till the time those provisions of IPC, they are taking away your life and liberty under a just, fair and reasonable procedure, they are constitutional. The moment they become unreasonable, unjust and unfair, they would fall within the domain of being declared unconstitutional.
Yes, sir.
Anyone who wants to speak anything on this point? Then I'll say one or two few words on this particular point, move on to CRPC, because we are not discussing IPC.
I believe that any law, any law in juristic system concerns us with a preambulistic commitment towards justice. So
or
same is the
or for that matter, uh, each and every law that exists in our legal system derives its validity, recalling Kelson's idea of grand norm, derives its
yes,
validity from a
yes,
higher norm, that is constitution. So therefore, if that law wants to exist, and that to exist like as a constitutional law within our legal system, it has to satisfy certain requirements. If it does not satisfy certain requirements, for example, if any law is violative of fundamental rights, then it can be declared unconstitutional. So that is how almost, not IPC, but almost all laws are somewhere connected to constitution. But IPC is like slightly different. वो बाकी ये पैरामीटर तो आईपीसी पे भी लागू होता है, बट आई विल गिव यू सम एग्जांपल्स व्हाई आईपीसी इज लिटिल बिट डिफरेंट इन दिस रिगार्ड एंड हाउ इट डिराइव्स इट्स philosophical foundations from constitutional principles. Hanji, anyone else? So in IPC, be it the definition and punishment for an offense, or be it only punishment that has been provided for an offense, both has to satisfy the constitutional requirement laid down under part 3rd of the Constitution of India. And if either of these, either the offense or the punishment which has been provided for the offense, falls within the domain of unjustness, unfairness, and unreasonableness, then it becomes a fit case that courts can declare such provision or such punishment to be unconstitutional. It has been a case in several decisions of the Supreme Court, and recently also in last 3-4 years we have seen that how Supreme Court has declared several provisions of IPC as unconstitutional. So therefore it's a criminal law का interaction with constitutional law is a continuous process, क्योंकि criminal law बताता है एक तरीका है जिससे कि state can take away your life and personal liberty as per the procedure laid down in that criminal law. लेकिन अगर किसी नागरिक को ये लगता है और किसी व्यक्ति को ये लगता है कि जिस तरीके से ये प्रोविजन लिखा हुआ है, डिफाइंड है जिस तरीके से प्रोविजन, या जो इसकी पनिशमेंट है प्रोविजन की, ये अनजस्ट और अनफेयर है, एंड इट इज एनक्रोचिंग ऑन माय फंडामेंटल राइट, रिजल्टिंग इनटू वायलेशन ऑफ माय फंडामेंटल राइट्स, देन दैट सिटीजन कैन or person can challenge the very validity of that law, and he or she may be successful in convincing the court to declare that provision to be unconstitutional. ऐसा समाज में सामाजिक, आर्थिक और राजनीतिक बदलाव के कारण हो सकता है, ऐसा समाज की जो ओवरऑल पब्लिक मोरालिटी है उसमें बदलाव के कारण हो सकता है, और ऐसा जो है वो किन्हीं और कारणों की वजह से हो सकता है. For example, 377 was a part of IPC since 1860, but because society changed, the economic, political, and social ethos of society developed with the passage of time, and we realized by the time we reached 21st century that any offense which declares a consensual sex between two consenting adults to be an offense, वो वाला प्रावधान जो है भाई वो अनजस्ट लगता है 21वीं सदी में. So therefore some fine soul, or in this case an organization, approached the Supreme Court asking it to declare that provision to be unconstitutional, and ultimately Supreme Court partially struck down 377, declaring that any provision which is making an act between two consenting adults and any sexual act between two consenting adults to be an offense must be declared as violative of provisions of part 3rd of the Constitution. For example, violative of Article 21 of the Constitution, violative of Article 14 of the Constitution. So that is how almost all provisions of IPC has continued to satisfy that requirement of constitutionality, and they may slip away from that requirement at any point of time. समाज में बदलाव के कारण they may slip away. Can you give me some other examples, or for example, one example wherein court has declared a settled provision of IPC which we are following since 1860 as unconstitutional because of some changes that has taken place in Indian society? Any other example in addition to 377?
309.
Section 30.
309. What did the court say about it? 309.
Ab- 309 basically deals with abetment to suicide.
Adultery,
Abetment to suicide. ठीक है?
Abetment to suicide.
decriminal adultery.
Somebody saying adultery. Are you aware about how court has declared adultery to be unconstitutional in Joseph Sign?
Sir, it was violative of right to equality.
Right to equality. ठीक है? So this is one more example. How your substantive criminal law is deriving its foundations, its legal foundations. I will not call them philosophical, but I am prompted to call them philosophical, but I will not say that. I will rather say how IPC provisions are deriving their legal foundations from constitutional law, and it has been frequently used by the court, or those constitutional or legal foundations are used by the courts to declare a particular provision of a substantive criminal law to be unconstitutional. एक example जैसे 377 का हो गया, somebody said 309, somebody said adultery. Now I'll give you few failed. Can you cite some failed attempts wherein the petitioner could not convince the court to declare a particular provision of IPC to be unconstitutional? That does not mean they will not be declared unconstitutional in future. That does not mean. Maybe society will change. Maybe it will be a different bench. Maybe a different set of lawyers would be able to convince कि भाई ये जो आईपीसी का प्रावधान है जिसके अंडर में आप मुझे पनिश करके मेरी लाइफ एंड लिबर्टी को टेक अवे कर सकते हो, ये अनजस्ट है, ये एग्जिस्ट नहीं करना चाहिए. Any failed attempt wherein the petitioner could not convince the court? Sedition law. ठीक है? So can you quote the case in which Supreme Court declined to declare sedition to be unconstitutional? 124 capital A to be unconstitutional.
Ramnandan case, I think so.
Yeah, that is Kedarnath Singh, I guess, versus State of Bihar. I'm not aware about that, but there is a case. You can flip through. But this is an example of a failed attempt from the side of a petitioner, wherein it has asked the court to declare that law to be unconstitutional, but court said no. You can read it in the manner or interpret it in the manner as we are suggesting. If you read it that way, then it would remain to be constitutional. It is not an unconstitutional provision. Any other example?
The preventive detention.
IPC से example बना. हाँ, Mahesh Singh, capital punishment. हाँ, talk about it because it's one of the pillars of interaction of IPC with constitutional law. Is it challenging the constitutional validity of death penalty? Can you call this as a failed attempt to convince the judiciary to declare death sentence to be an unconstitutional sentence?
Yes, sir. Actually, I just searched it on Google, and there was a case in Jagmohan Singh versus State of Uttar Pradesh.
ठीक है जी. So in Jagmohan, हाँ आगे की story मैं बता दूंगा, ठीक है. So in Jagmohan, it was for the first time that somebody decided to challenge this. कि भाई ये जो आईपीसी में जहां भी आपने पनिश, तो मैंने क्या बोला था आपको शुरू में कि आईपीसी would interact with constitutional law not only when it comes to deciding the constitutional validity of the provisions relating to offenses, but also when it comes to deciding the constitutional validity of the nature and kind of the punishment that has been provided under IPC. तो वहां भी वो interact करेगा. So when someone challenge the constitutional validity of death sentence, it is an example how you can also challenge the nature or kind of sentence that has been provided under IPC under the provisions of Constitution. So in Jagmohan, petitioner Jagmohan approached the court and asked the court to decide on the constitutional validity of death sentence. His plea was that this sentence is unjust, unfair, and unreasonable. So therefore, it amounts to torture. Therefore, it must be declared unconstitutional. Court declined that plea, and it is because of Jagmohan. Later on, Supreme Court once again was confronted with this issue in Bachan Singh case, which you study as a part of doctrine of rarest of rare cases. But it is more relevant a case for discussing the interaction between constitutional law and the provisions of Indian Penal Code. So the attempt to get a declaration from Supreme Court that capital punishment is an unconstitutional form of punishment has been a failed attempt. But you do not know what may happen in future. Considering a very aggressive movement against death penalty, you do not know that in future we may see a decision wherein court is declaring capital punishment to be an unconstitutional form of punishment. Any other example of failed attempt by the petitioner wherein it has asked Supreme Court to declare a particular provision of IPC to be unconstitutional, be it relating to an offense or a punishment? Punishment पे तो नहीं मिलेगा आपको कोई और, but if you could recall anything from the side of offense. So recently,
maybe the demand to criminalize marital rape.
Yes. It is one more example wherein recently Supreme Court has interpreted the provision relating to offenses relating to sexual offenses in a marriage, in a legally valid marriage, and read it. They have changed the age, I guess, that now you are going to read that provision to be something wherein you will read the age as 18 years. So they did not declare that to be unconstitutional, but there was an aggressive campaign to declare that particular thing to be unconstitutional, but they did not declare it. So any other example? But in future, there is the window is open that it's actually, this problem is slightly different. So you can leave this issue for a while. The problem of marital rape is something like asking the court to declare that it is an offense. It is not like asking the court to declare that it is an unconstitutional thing. The problem is something else. So women rights group, they are advocating that any sexual intercourse, even in a marriage, without the consent of the women, must be declared to be an offense. So the problem there is different. Any other example of an attempt wherein you were trying to convince the court, or petitioner was trying to convince the court to declare a particular law to be a provision to be unconstitutional? Have you read about Subramaniam Swamy approaching the court asking it to declare offense of defamation to be unconstitutional?
Yes, sir, against Ram Jethmalani.
Not actually against Ram Jethmalani. It's just a case. It's not against someone. It's like Subramaniam Swamy against Union of India approaching the Supreme Court asking it to declare Section 500 to be unconstitutional. But it was not. So it proved to be a failed attempt. Court said that no, we are not convinced with your arguments. This offense seems to us to be a valid and constitutional offense. So basically, in conclusion, the idea is that even in IPC, forget about CRPC, if you look at IPC, the entire structure of IPC, then all those offenses and the punishment that is provided therein, they are always at the verge, or they are always under the scanner of Supreme Court, and it is with the passage of time we may realize that one provision which was a very well accepted offense under IPC may be declared unconstitutional in future. So here, how these things happen? I'll tell you a bit about them, and then we will move on. For example, an offense under sedition is registered against you. You are charged for the commission of offense of sedition. Now, you have an option that you can approach High Court or Supreme Court under Article 226 or under Article 32 of the Constitution, asking the court to declare that offense under which you are charged to be unconstitutional. तो ये जो केसेस आते हैं इस तरीके के जहां पे आप किसी अपराध को अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिक्लेयर कराने के लिए कोर्ट जाते हो, वो इस तरीके से अराइज होता है. आप समझ रहे हो मेरी बात? कि आपके ऊपर उस अपराध को करने का आरोप लगा और आपका ये मानना है कि वो अपराध अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है, तो आप कोर्ट को अप्रोच करते हो एंड देन यू आस्क द कोर्ट अंडर आर्टिकल 32 यू आस्क सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड अंडर आर्टिकल 226 यू आस्क हाई कोर्ट कि भाई ये मेरे ऊपर आरोप इस अपराध के अंडर लगे हैं, बट मेरे हिसाब से ये अपराध अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है. रिसेंटली एक ट्रेंड है, ये थोड़ा नया है, आफ्टर द एडवेंट ऑफ PIL एंड एग्रेसिव यूज ऑफ PIL इनसाइड कोर्ट रूम्स, कोई भी पब्लिक स्पिरिटेड पर्सन कुड आल्सो अप्रोच कोर्ट आस्किंग द कोर्ट कि भाई ये जो अपराध लिखा हुआ है, बी इट इन IPC और इन एनी अदर स्पेशल और लोकल लॉ, क्रिमिनल लॉ, ये अपराध इज अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल. इसका प्राइमरी एग्जांपल इज श्रेया सिंघल वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया. श्रेया सिंघल, a public spirited person, approached Supreme Court asking it to declare 66 of IT Act to be unconstitutional. कि जो अपराध जो है ये unjust, unfair and reasonable है, और अगर कोई अपराध is unjust, unfair and reasonable, so therefore it would result into invasion on my fundamental rights, and hence I am asking you to declare it to be unconstitutional. But ये दोनों तरीके से ऑपरेट हो सकता है. That a public spirited person can approach the court asking it to declare a particular provision relating to an offense to be unconstitutional. दूसरा, if suppose you are charged for the commission of a particular offense and you think, according to you, that offense is not constitutional or valid, then you can approach the court asking the court to declare that offense to be unconstitutional. वो आप इसलिए जा रहे हो कोर्ट में क्योंकि if the court happens to declare that offense to be unconstitutional, then you will be scot free. जब वो अपराधी अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल हो गया तो जो उसके अंडर जिसके ऊपर भी चार्ज लगे हुए हैं, all those people including you would go scot free. Now we will move from IPC to CRPC. Now if I ask you the same question, do you think that there are several kinds of constitutional foundations of CRPC or criminal procedure? How would you respond to this question? And or say, or if I try to frame it in simpler words, do you think that CRPC provisions like IPC are also deeply connected for the purpose of deriving their validity to the provisions of Constitution? Anyone? मैं एक थोड़ा सा और आपको हेल्प कर देता हूँ, खाका खींच देता हूँ थोड़ा सा. CRPC provides for different functionaries of criminal justice administration, जैसे कि मैजिस्ट्रेट हो गया, एग्जीक्यूटिव मैजिस्ट्रेट हो गया, जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट, जजेस हो गए, प्रोसिक्यूशन हो गया, पुलिस की पावर दी हुई है CRPC में, कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव, अरेस्ट का है, सर्च सीजर का है, फिर ट्रायल का है, बेल का है. तो ये सारे प्रोविजन हैं CRPC में. अब आपको लगता है कि ये कहीं ना कहीं अपनी वैलिडिटी के लिए दे आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन सर्टेन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस? due process of law. It's good, but can you connect any larger part of CRPC
Sir, like
with the
that
constitution?
use has to be produced
Hanji?
within 24 hours. That use has to be produced within 24 hours.
Good,
before the
good, good, good.
magistrate.
So any other question? Article 22. What does it provide for, Siddharth? Article 22, and how you can connect it with CRPC? So, for example, let's start with Article 22. Okay? Just I'm coming to double jeopardy as well. So let's start with Article 22. CRPC provides for several powers of the police to arrest an accused person, or to search a premises, or to seize a particular item which they think is relevant for the purpose of completing the investigation. When it comes to arresting you, then what police is doing? It is taking away your anyone, when you are being arrested by the police is taking away your
Fundamental right.
personal liberty, and which is enshrined as a fundamental right under Article 21. In addition to that, Article 21 of the Constitution, under Clause 1 and Clause 2 of that particular Article 22 of the Constitution, in addition to Article 21, Article 22 under Clause 1 and Clause 2 provided certain safeguards or limitations on the power of the police when it is arresting a person or it has arrested a person. So therefore, the power of police to arrest a person is circumscribed or is actually limited or defined by the provisions of constitutional law under Article 21 and Article 22. Even our constitutional framers were aware that state, when it will act through police, may infringe certain basic rights of citizens. So therefore, they have provided for certain safeguards in the Constitution under Article 22. उन्हें भी पता था कि किसी को arrest तो police has the power to arrest, so therefore it will perform its function. But while performing that function, वो arrest may not result into infringement of your rights or taking away of your human dignity. तो इस वजह से constitutional framers have provided for certain safeguards under Article 22. And under Article 21, you have a right not to be arrested until and unless there is not a procedure established under law. Your arrest would be illegal, and it can be declared so, and you can approach the court for issuance of writ of habeas corpus. अगर आपको लगता है कि आपको गैर कानूनी तरीके से किसी ने हिरासत में ले लिया है, तो अगर आपको ऐसा लगता है, then you can approach the court and ask the court to give you the appropriate relief. Same rule would apply in case of seizure, search and seizure. So why I am saying same rule would apply? Property in law is treated to be an extension of your body. अब बहुत से लोगों को ये थोड़ा अजीब सा लगेगा, जो थोड़ा मिनिमलिस्ट टाइप के लोग हैं, कि यार ये कैसी बात हो गई, प्रॉपर्टी इन लॉ इज ट्रीटेड टू बी एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ योर बॉडी. थोड़ा कैपिटलिस्ट सा स्टेटमेंट लगता है सुनने में, बट इट इज नॉट सो. इट इज एक्चुअली अ स्टेटमेंट कनेक्टेड टू योर human dignity, that property is an extension of your body. And IPC in several provisions makes it perfectly clear that how important property is in the eyes of law, and law will give you any power to protect your property, or law will give you the same powers to protect your property as it gives you the powers to protect your own body. For example, in general defense relating to private defense. Do you have the power to cause somebody's death in certain situation when there is a threat to your body? Do you have that power?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And if I just reframe my question and ask you that, do you have the power to cause somebody's death in case that person is intending to harm or trying to harm your property? Do you have that power?
Yes, sir.
तो यहाँ से आपको, and there are many other examples of such statement which I had made, that property is treated to be an extension of your body. Your property is treated to be an extension of your body. So जैसे कि IPC has made it clear under general defenses कि जो पावर आपको अपनी बॉडी को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए है इन एक्सरसाइज ऑफ योर राइट टू प्राइवेट डिफेंस, सेम पावर आपको अपनी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए है. So इस वजह से the rights that you have under constitution to protect your body from being taken away by a police officer in the process of arrest, you will enjoy similar rights when it comes to power of police to search your premises. तो इसी वजह से प्रोविजन है कि भैया there are certain searches which can be made with warrant and there are certain searches which can be made without warrant, and you always have an option to challenge the validity of a search warrant. तो यहाँ पे भी CRPC would connect with constitutional law. Now coming to the rights of the accused person during trial. So there also CRPC is deeply connected with the constitutional rights or fundamental rights that are available to us under the provisions of Constitution, that every accused person must be given a fair trial. And fair trial means that he must be given a chance to participate in the trial, he must be given a chance to defend himself, he must be provided with, if he is poor or indigent person, he must be provided with a lawyer. So all these things are nothing but an extension of the rights which are recognized by the Supreme Court under Article 21. Be it right to a speedy trial, recognized in Hussain Ara Khatun, later on affirmed by Supreme Court in several cases, be it right for free legal aid in case you are an accused who is poor and cannot afford a legal representation. So therefore, these are some more examples of how CRPC foundations lies there. They lie there in constitutional law. Another important aspect is that the procedural law that you have, it must be, number one, certain and uniform. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि अमीर आदमी के लिए प्रोसीजरल लॉ अलग है और गरीब आदमी के लिए प्रोसीजरल लॉ अलग है. इन प्रैक्टिस यू कैन से कि सर ठीक है वो जैसा होगा सीआरपीसी में ऐसा होगा, बट अमीरों के लिए तो शायद थोड़ा सा अलग ही हो, बट दैट इज नॉट ट्रू. द idea, theoretical framework, if you look at the theoretical framework of CRPC does not discriminate between you and any other person on the basis of your gender, on the basis of your race, your caste, your economic status, your political status. If you have committed a crime, then you will be proceeded, or you can be proceeded against under the provisions of CRPC. And similar is the benchmark of IPC. Why I am saying so? That similar is the benchmark of IPC. Could anyone point out why IPC is egalitarian in nature? It is applicable to everyone. Anyone? If I suppose make this statement that look here, this statute IPC, which contains the general criminal law of this country, is egalitarian in nature. It is color blind, it is caste blind, it is money blind. It does not care about all these things. And that is the hallmark of a good substantive criminal law and substantive procedural criminal law. That is the hallmark. that it must apply to each and every one without discrimination. So if you look at the definitions of the offenses under IPC, they starts with the word, anyone? They starts with the word whoever. Law does not care about who you are. Whosoever you are, if you have done this, you have committed an offense as per the provisions of IPC. Whosoever does this, whosoever. ये नहीं है कि if any person earning less than rupees 10 lakh has done this, if a black person has done this, if a person of a particular caste has done this, then it will be an offense. If a person of a particular religion has done this, then it will be an offense. अगर कुछ प्रोविजन ऐसे होंगे भी जहां पे आपको लगेगा कि यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे स्पेसिफाई कर रहा है कि किसने करना है अपराध, तो वहां पे आपको नाम लिखा हुआ मिलेगा पब्लिक सर्वेंट. सो वो वाला प्रोविजन इज मोर लाइक अगेंस्ट गवर्नमेंट इटसेल्फ. बट अगर कॉमन सिटीजनरी की बात करो, आईपीसी इज ऑलमोस्ट ऑल प्रोविजंस ऑफ आईपीसी आर इगैलिटेरियन इन नेचर. मतलब नहीं है उसको कि आपका कलर क्या है, आपका कास्ट क्या है, आपका रिलीजन क्या है, आपका जेंडर क्या है, उनको उस प्रोविजन को इस बात से मतलब नहीं है. And this was the, in a way, philosophical foundations of a good criminal law, which took shape both substantive as well as procedural law in common law system in UK, that it must be non-discriminatory in nature. जिससे कि किसी भी व्यक्ति को ये ना लगे कि भाई मुझे तो मेरे साथ तो गलत हो रहा है. जो ट्रायल का प्रोसीजर मुझे दिया गया है, इट इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द ट्रायल का प्रोसीजर जो किसी रिच आदमी को मिला है, या जो किसी पर्टिकुलर कास्ट के व्यक्ति को मिला है, रेस के व्यक्ति को मिला है, या फिर किसी पर्टिकुलर रिलीजन के व्यक्ति को मिला है. सो सिमिलरली एज आईपीसी इज egalitarian in nature, similarly the provisions of CRPC also are applicable to everyone who has been charged for committing a crime. हर किसी पे लागू होंगे. ऐसा नहीं कर सकते हो आप कि भाई पीयूष कुमार ने अपराध किया, मर्डर किया किसी का, तो उनका ट्रायल जो है वो स्पेशल कोर्ट करेगा, और आपने कोई अपराध किया, सेम अपराध किया, तो आपका ट्रायल जो है वो कोई रेगुलर कोर्ट करेगा. सो therefore this idea of non-discrimination has also resulted into interaction of criminal law into with constitutional law. क्योंकि why I am saying this? Because with the passage of time we realize that there are certain offenses which must be tried by special judges. There are offenses for which the bail provisions should be interpreted differently. So therefore all those statutes which provides for a different procedure other than CRPC, a different bail procedure other than CRPC, had always been under criticism. अब उनको आपने अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिक्लेयर किया हो या ना किया हो वो बात दूसरी है, बट they have always been under pressure. They have always been under pressure. Recent example which you can quote is that the procedure to obtain bail under criminal procedure, under the provision is comparatively simpler or not so difficult as the procedure to obtain a bail under special acts like UAPA or like NDPS or like any other special law which has created certain offenses. So therefore the provisions of CRPC and other procedural laws which provides for certain aspects of procedure under their provisions, they have always been in interaction with Article 14. Article 14 provides for right to equality, and that right to equality has been interpreted to be applicable to procedural equality as well. Not only substantive equality, but also procedural equality. So you would see there are several cases decided by the Supreme Court wherein accused persons or aggrieved persons have challenged certain procedural laws as violative of Article 14. So this is in brief the idea about, or this is in brief the things that you should know about the constitutional foundations of CRPC. So do not think that CRPC can exist on its own. It has to exist in consonance with the provisions of the Constitution. It cannot go beyond its radar. Be it the provisions relating to arrest, search, seizure, be it the provisions relating to fair trial, be it the provisions relating to bail, all these aspects or parts of CRPC, they have to satisfy certain constitutional requirement. If they do not satisfy, then they can be declared to be unconstitutional. So that is in brief about the first aspect that I intended to discuss in today's class. That this is how you. This is also a way to look at CRPC. This is one way to look at CRPC. Looking at CRPC through the lens of constitutional law. मतलब सिंपल सा विजुअलाइज कर लो कि आप कोई लेंस लेके बैठे हो और सारे प्रोविजंस को सीआरपीसी के स्कैन कर रहे हो कि कौन सा जो प्रोविजन है वो खरा उतरता है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस पे, कौन सा नहीं उतरता। सेम लेंस आप लेके बैठते हो जब आईपीसी पढ़ते हो, दोनों में वो लेंस लेके बैठ सकते हो। आईपीसी में बहुत प्राइमरी एग्जांपल्स हैं ऐसे जहां पे कि that lens has really worked. It has resulted into declaration of homosexuality to be a declaration of 377, which makes homosexuality to be an offense between two consenting adults to be unconstitutional, adultery to be unconstitutional. In MeToo 303 was declared unconstitutional. Defamation has been attempted to be declared unconstitutional, but petitioner failed. Maybe in future it may be declared unconstitutional, and there are similar examples, other similar examples as well. So I'll stop here for a while. If you want to ask something, you can ask. This is off the radar topic. Nobody is going to ask you in your exam this that. अच्छा ये बताओ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल फाउंडेशंस क्या हैं सीआरपीसी की, बट यू शुड नो इट, जैसे आपको प्रोसीजरल और सब्सटेंटिव लॉ के बीच का डिफरेंस पता होना चाहिए विद द हेल्प ऑफ एग्जांपल्स व्हिच वी डिस्कस्ड इन द लास्ट क्लास. Similarly, you should also know the constitutional foundations of CRPC and even IPC. So I tried to cover both because I know nobody has talked about this. क्योंकि IPC में तो IPC पढ़ेंगे ना, उसमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्यों पढ़ेंगे? But when you are reading a substantive criminal law or a procedural law, procedural criminal law, then you must look at this angle as well. And also the idea of egalitarianism, that is philosophical foundations of both the laws, IPC and CRPC. कि ये भेद नहीं करते हैं किसी में, जिसने अपराध किया है वो मायने नहीं रखता है कि वो किस कास्ट से संबंधित है, किस रिलीजन से है, किस कलर का है, किस जेंडर का है. अगर अपराध किया है then he will be proceeded against, he or she will be proceeded against and will be tried as per the provisions of a uniform law. Uniformity of law is also a benchmark of human civilization. Is one of the benchmark, uniformity of law. क्योंकि आपको बड़ी टीस होती है जब आप देखते हो किसी को स्पेशल प्रिविलेज मिल रहा है किसी भी तरीके पे कहीं भी, आपको लगता है यार ये तो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है. Are you getting it? So that is why if your criminal laws are uniform in nature, then it serves multiple purposes. It shows that civilizationally the country is like good. It shows that the country respects human dignity of each and every individual. It shows that there is a rule of law, not rule by men, कि वो जिसकी मर्जी आए उसको छोड़ दे, जिसकी मर्जी आए उसको पकड़ ले. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. Everybody is bound by the rule of law. Nobody can venture beyond that particular sphere. So briefly, I will discuss this topic now. It is there in your as a part of your syllabus. The things that we just discussed, they are not there in as a part of your syllabus. This is a topic which is a part of your syllabus. So basically, if you look at if you read this slide, then you will you can easily understand it now, as we have discussed constitutional foundations of CRPC. But a few new things that we will see under these slides that we will discuss. So basically, this code provides a machinery for detection of crime. That is number one. So try to visualize these things. Now, you can visualize it by imagining that suppose a crime is committed against someone, that person is now going to the police station or has gone to the police station to report that crime. Now the crime has been reported. Once the crime has been reported, so police may start its investigation to detect the crime. Who has committed the crime? If police knows through FIR that this person has been accused of committing a crime, they can move on to investigate and also apprehend the suspected criminals. It also provides a procedure for collection of evidences, which we know as power of police to investigate a case. It also provides a procedure for trial, which is nothing but a procedure to determine the guilt or innocence of the accused person, and then imposition of sentence on that particular accused person. So this is largely the sphere of CRPC. That as a law, why is it important? Because it provides a machinery which is certain and uniform. Remember both these words. It provides a machinery or a procedure which is both certain and uniform for the purpose of detection of crime, apprehension of suspected criminals, collection of evidences and trial. अगर आपने ये चार चीजें एक बार you have imagined in your mind, so basically you are ready to write about the importance of CRPC. It is providing for these four things. So basically, it also takes care of this fact that nobody should be suspected, tried or punished in an unreasonable, unjust and unfair manner. So at this juncture, when it's one of the objective is this one, that no innocent person should be unnecessarily suspected, tried and punished. There it interacts with constitution. So therefore the discussion that we had can also be used to bring forth the importance of this particular code. But in very simpler words, CRPC is important because it provides for a certain and uniform procedure for detection of crime, apprehension of suspected criminals, for trial and imposition of sentence. So that is why this code is very much relevant. Now, 37th report of Law Commission has looked at CRPC with two angles, and these are slightly different angles. Number one, it says that expense, delay or uncertainty in applying the best laws for the prevention and punishment of an offense would render those law useless or oppressive if you have these things. So basically what Law Commission was trying to say is that according to us, if any person is going to suffer unnecessary monetary expenses, is going to see a delay and is not certain about what is the law when it comes to taking a remedy or going for a remedy when a crime is committed against him or against someone whom he knows or related to, then it would result into a lawless society. So therefore, the importance of CRPC is that it is providing you a certain legal procedure which you can invoke if a crime has been committed. Plus, it is also trying to make that procedure inexpensive because most of the time prosecution and right from the investigation up to the prosecution and trial, everything is being taken care of by the state. Plus, if you read the provisions of CRPC, they are saying that we have tried to draft, or the CRPC has been drafted in a manner so that minimum delay is caused during the investigation and trial of the offences. The actual situation might be different, but according to Law Commission, this is how you should understand the importance of CRPC. कि अगर ये एक्ट ना हो तो ना तो आपके पास कोई certain mechanism होगा that what one should do when a crime has been committed against him or her, or what the members of the society are supposed to do when a crime has been committed. ना ही आपके पास ये guarantee होगी that when you engage into the fold of criminal justice administration, then you won't be required to incur huge expenses, और डिले भी पॉसिबल है क्योंकि जब लॉ सर्टेन नहीं है और जब बहुत ज्यादा पैसा लगेगा, सो इट मे रिजल्ट इनटू डिले. एंड सपोज इफ देयर इज नो लॉ एट ऑल, नो सर्टेन लॉ एट ऑल, देन इट इज अ रेसिपी फॉर डिजास्टर, इट इज अ रेसिपी फॉर ऑपरेशन. सो लॉ कमीशन इज लुकिंग एट द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ सीआरपीसी थ्रू दिस एंगल, कि भाई ये जो कोड है ना, ये इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि एक सर्टेन प्रोसीजर हमें बता रहा है. ये जो प्रोसीजर बता रहा है उसमें मिनिमम ऑफ एक्सपेंसेस होते हैं एंड मिनिमम ऑफ डिले होता है. दैट इज व्हाई दिस प्रोसीजर इज, दिस कोड इज रेलेवेंट. एंड नंबर 2, लॉ रिलेटिंग टू क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर अकॉर्डिंग टू लॉ कमीशन इज मोर कॉन्स्टेंटली यूज्ड and affects a greater number of persons than any other law. So it is second reason which is important to be taken into account to point out the relevance or importance of criminal procedure. That this is one law with whom there are high chances that most of us ends up interacting in one way or the other way, either as a victim of crime, either as an accused person, either as members of the society, but we all are stakeholders in this law. So the nature of this law is such normally, and that is how you can differentiate between private law and public law. So CRPC is a public law, it's not a private law. Do you have any idea about the difference between private law and public law? Anyone? Private law and public law.
So all the laws which are governed to an individuals are private laws.
For example, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, दो व्यक्तियों के बीच में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया लेन देन का, वो इंटरेस्टेड है उसमें, ठीक है. दैट इज व्हाई यू हैव द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ प्रिविटी ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. फॉर एग्जांपल, दो लोगों के बीच में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया जमीन के खरीद के बेचने का, ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट, इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट से रिलेटेड, या फिर एक व्यक्ति ने दूसरे को मोर्टगेज कर दिया, या फिर किसी के केस में टॉर्ट कमिट हो गया, या फिर कुछ मेंबर्स हैं ऑफ ए पार्टनरशिप फर्म, या फिर एक ट्राइपार्टाइट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है गारंटी का, you are agent of somebody. So all these are laws which are private in nature. So therefore, largely a term is used for them that they are private laws. On the other hand, there are certain laws which are public laws. It means the interest of the society is also at the stake. In simpler words, for example, IPC is a part of public law. Constitutional law is a part of public law. Administrative is a public law. So similarly, CRPC is also a public law. So therefore, that is why Law Commission is saying that this is a law with which all of us are going to have interaction, either in a direct manner or either in an indirect manner. In a direct manner, we will be interacting with CRPC either as a victim of a crime, a witness of a crime, or an accused person. तीन तरीके से हम interact कर सकते हैं. Indirectly, we can interact with CRPC as members of the society, because if there is no law and order in the society, everybody is free, for example, to commit any offensive act against everyone, then it is a recipe for disaster. Nobody wants that. So that is why each one of us wants that if a crime has been committed, there must be a machinery to detect that crime, to apprehend people who are suspected to have committed that crime, to put them on trial and punish them and take them out of the folds of society, out of the folds of the day-to-day life of the society. Also, in the decision of Iqbal Ismail Sodawala versus State of Maharashtra, while pointing out at the importance of CRPC, Justice H.R. Khanna observed that Code of Criminal Procedure is essentially a code of procedure, and like all procedural law, it is designed to further the ends of justice. At the same time, it has to be borne in mind that it is a procedure that spells much of difference between rule of law and rule by whim or caprice. This I have discussed with you. Because CRPC is egalitarian in nature, CRPC, even when it is giving power to arrest, search or conduct a trial of accused person, is taking care of this fact that none of these powers could be abused or misused. That is why the interaction between CRPC and constitutional law is important. And if they are being abused or misused, then the aggrieved person can approach the court for seeking the remedy of violation of his fundamental rights under the Constitution by the provisions of this Act, or by the functionaries of criminal justice administration under the provisions of this Act. So therefore, it is a symbol of how you can demarcate between rule of law, a law which is based on rule of law, and a law which is based on whim and caprice. So CRPC, because it is uniformly applicable to everyone, it is certain the powers under it are limited by the provisions of the Constitution, and you can avail remedies against misuse or abuse of power by functionaries of criminal justice administration under CRPC. So therefore, this is a law which is deeply embedded in the idea of rule of law. And the object of the code is not only to give justice to the victim, but also to ensure that accused must be given a full and fair trial. And this importance of CRPC has been summed up in Joginder Kumar versus State of UP, when, and this statement you would come across when it comes to talking about women issues, when it comes to talking about child issues, when it comes to talking about minority related issues, gender related issues, you will come across a similar statement. But in Joginder Kumar versus State of UP, the Supreme Court observed through Venkat Chalaiya that the quality of a nation's civilization can be largely measured by methods it uses in the enforcement of criminal law. So that is how you can measure the quality of a civilization. अगर कहीं पे ऐसा है कि police can indiscriminately shoot anyone in the broad daylight according to their whims and fancies and enjoy the impunity that they won't be prosecuted, then there is a problem with that civilization. अगर कहीं पे ऐसा है कि people are being arrested and being killed in custody, then there is a problem with that civilization. अगर कहीं पे ऐसा है that you are being tried without your effective participation in that trial, for example, it's a monarchy and the word of the monarch is the last word, and somebody produced a criminal, that suspected criminal, not criminal, and accused that Mr. King, this person has committed XYZ offense, and kings decide summarily that, oh, he has committed or dared to commit an offense in my empire, in my territory, so therefore he is condemned for death. So if a society is such, which I had given some examples of, then it is nothing but a question mark on the civilization of that entire nation. So a good procedural law, which is uniform, simple, certain, inexpensive, and which is expeditious, is an example, or is an example of how the civilization of a particular nation is at its highest level, Similar statements are made by several authors when it comes to talking about women issues and children issues, that a nation's civilization can be measured by the way it treats its women, by the way it treats its children, by the way it treats its minorities, by the way it treats its people of other genders other than male and female, other genders. So this is a statement that has been used, or that is being used to point out the importance of a particular issue for a nation's civilization. So look at the benchmark that is there for a criminal procedure law. That a good procedural law, criminal procedural law, would reflect at or is a reflection of the entire society. Is a reflection of the entire society. The last one is that, and this I have already discussed with you as a part of difference between substantive and procedural laws, that efficacy of substantive law depends on procedural law. So if substantive laws which are only elected to provide for a punishment for an offense or an act which has been declared to be an offense under that law, if they have to be efficacious, then you must have a procedural law which is uniform, which is certain, which is simple, which is inexpensive, and then only you can safely say that the substantive law of our country are efficacious. Otherwise, it becomes a very difficult objective to achieve. If you want to enjoy the status of a nation wherein you can say that we have a very effective substantive law ka system, then you must have a very effective procedural law ka system. So in conclusion, one can summarize the entire discussion of importance relating to the code, the criminal procedure code, is that it is a kind of extension of rule of law. It reflects upon the civilization of a country. It reflects on the importance of law and order in a particular nation. It provides for a machinery of detection of crime, of apprehension of suspected personnel, trial of offenders, and the resultant punishment. It provides for a fair trial and several rights associated with that fair trial to the accused person. So it not only takes care of the victim interest, state ka interest, society ka interest, but it also takes care of the interest of the accused person. So therefore, the criminal procedure enjoys a very high importance or very huge importance in our legal system or in Indian legal system. So that is all for the second issue which I wanted to discuss with you. If you want to ask anything, add anything to this particular discussion, you can go ahead and add to it.
Sir, is CRPC valid on armed forces also?
It depends. There is a provision relating to arrest, both arrest and prosecution. There is a provision. So CRPC says that no person of armed forces can be arrested till the time you satisfy these requirements. And plus, no person of armed forces can be prosecuted if these conditions are satisfied. But those safeguards are available to the members of armed forces only when they have committed an offense while on duty. If suppose armed personnel is at his home on a holiday of 30 days and he commits the offense of murder, then he can safely be proceeded against. An FIR would immediately be registered against him and he will be accordingly prosecuted under the regular procedure. So jo safeguard available hai, they are limited in nature, only available when you are your act for which you have been accused to have committed an offense has been done during your duty or as a part of your duty. वहां पे tweak the थोड़ा सा procedure. Anything else which you want to ask? थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट चीज वो थी जो मैंने बोला था ना, that property is an extension of your human body. So if you reread IPC, आज जाके जब दोबारा से पढ़ोगे ना IPC को, तो इसका ज्यादा अंदाजा लगेगा आपको. आईपीसी के दो इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर है, ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट बॉडी एंड ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी। और आप भी रियलाइज नहीं करोगे कि अगर किसी को मैं वैसे भी बोल दूं ना कि 5 क्वेश्चन आईपीसी पे बना के दूं, तो वो 4 क्वेश्चन ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी पे बनाएगा, बॉडी पे 1 बनाएगा या 2 बना देगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा। द रेशियो ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस रिलेटिंग टू ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी वुड बी मच हायर देन बॉडी। और वैसे देखने से ऐसा लगता है कि यार मुझे मत कुछ बोलो, प्रॉपर्टी से क्या करना है कर लो जो करना है, बट दैट इज नॉट द केस। It is the basic human nature, it is deeply embedded ethos of human nature that we treat our property to be an extension of our body, unconsciously, not consciously, unconsciously. So if you are treating it unconsciously, imagine how you would treat it consciously. That is why we have a battery of offenses, like starting from theft to extortion, to robbery, to dacoity, to forgery, to mischief, to public nuisance, to criminal trespass, to housebreaking at night, house trespass. There is a multitude of offenses under IPC. So the hallmark of IPC is not that it is declaring offenses against body to be acts against offenses against body, acts against injuring your body to be offenses. The hallmark is that it is recognizing this unconscious value embedded in human body or human rationality, that we treat our property to be an extension of our body. We treat our property to be an extension of our body. And we have this unconscious recognition that this is my property and this is not my property. We have this unconscious recognition of the fact. पता है हमें ये चीज, और कहीं ना कहीं हमें बचपन से ही पता होनी शुरू हो जाती है। इवन एनिमल्स मार्क देयर टेरिटरी। जो लोग के घर में पेट होंगे ना, तो उनको पता होगा कि दे मार्क देयर टेरिटरी। So if animals can mark their territory, when they are marking their territory, then they are extending their body to a particular area. कि भाई यहाँ मैं सेफ हूं, ये मेरा सिटाइडल है, ये मेरा कासल है, ये मेरी चीज है, ठीक है। तो इमेजिन ह्यूमन बीइंग्स हु आर रेशनल बीइंग्स, वो किस तरीके से इस चीज के बारे में सोचते होंगे, दैट प्रॉपर्टी इज एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ आवर बॉडी। वो थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट चीज है अंडरस्टैंड करना, बट इंटरेस्टिंग भी है उतना ही। अगर आप ध्यान से आईपीसी पढ़ोगे ना, तो आपको रियलाइज होगा कि यार ये कोड तो इज मोर इंटरेस्टिंग इन प्रोटेक्टिंग माई प्रॉपर्टी। बॉडी को तो चलो प्रोटेक्ट करता है, समझ आता है, बट व्हाई इज इट सो मच इंटरेस्टेड इन प्रोटेक्टिंग माई प्रॉपर्टी? So for that you have to give a thumbs up to the Western civilization. Even in Indian ethos also we do recognize in scriptures कि चोरी करना गलत है, बट उसका जो मल्टीट्यूड है वो ज्यादा रिफ्लेक्ट होता है वेस्टर्न इथोस में। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इन इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन trespass is not treated to be that kind of a wrong as it is treated to be a wrong under Western civilization. तो वहां थोड़ा सा फर्क है इथोस में। We believe in the idea of community, communitarian philosophy, social coercion, but people who believe more in individualism and private property, they will have this idea कि भैया no, declare criminal trespass to be an offense. मेरे से अगर कोई पूछे कि क्रिमिनल ट्रेसपास ऑफेंस होना चाहिए क्या, तो मैं बोलूंगा नहीं भाई, क्योंकि माय अपब्रिंगिंग इज सच। ठीक है, कोई घुस गया, अगर गलती से घुस गया, इसका मतलब ये थोड़ी है कि उसको आप, हाँ, हाउस ब्रेकिंग में मैं कह सकता हूँ, बिकॉज देन इट विल एड ऑन और इट मे रिजल्ट इनटू अदर ऑफेंसेस लाइक थेफ्ट, रॉबरी और अदर डेकोइटी, अदर ऑफेंसेस। बट mere stepping on to somebody's land does not seem to me to be a offense or to be a punishable offense. But the those of people who drafted IPC were slightly different, so they introduced this idea of making criminal trespass to be an offense. It's good that you, if you are making it to be a tort, no problem. A simple trespass per se, not house breaking, not house breaking at night, simple trespass per se, you can call it a tort, but there is no need to call it a crime. किसी को कुछ पूछना है तो भाई बता दीजिए. We are done with our today's lecture. Please start reading CRPC का table of content so that when I discuss that particular topic, we are able to follow it. Hindu Marriage Act, Siddharth, is a private law. मियाँ बीवी के बीच की बात है. सुहासिनी, मानसी. सुहासिनी, मानसी, साहिल, राजेश.
Yes, sir.
राजेश,